This project combines spoken word storytelling with facilitation practices to create connection and enliven healing energy. It is currently in development. Rick Feltington of the Earth, storyteller, process artist, and agent of change, is telling the story he has crafted called The Prophecy of the Great Brightening. Alison Fornes, systemic constellations facilitator, trainer, and author of the upcoming book, The Knowing Revolution, a manual for evolutionary educators, how embodied knowing and relational intelligence will change the world, is facilitating an interactive guided process that allows people to embody aspects of the story. This is the first excerpt from the reading. The Prophecy Project envisions a traveling production with actors and musicians that weaves drama with movement and community connection practices to bring healing and rejuvenation to our world, making it easier for us to fully see and hear each other with the eyes of the heart. Also in development is a component web application that gamifies connection practices online, creating a ritual event each new moon to help shift the communication paradigm, creating space for each soul expression to emerge, helping to move humanity toward an experience of shared power and the birthing in of a new cultural operating system, where needs may be more easily expressed and met, and innate gifts more easily shared. To support this vital work, become a patron at patreon.com/Rick Feltington. Patrons receive access to monthly readings and constellation sessions, as well as a monthly call to generate coherence and activate flow. Hello, it's nice to see you. From my heart and my soul, I greet you. I hope that you may be breathing real full in this moment and feeling in tune with your natural rhythm. My journey on this planet's been like a search for the serum to reconnect the planet people and to uplift the conditions and to get that energy flowing like one healthy organism. Everybody's got a purpose and every soul has got a mission. We are living in the days of this great and often very challenging transition. Yes, we are on this beautiful earth amidst these stars. We use the language of our bodies. We use sound and words and imagery to speak. We are blessed with gifts to consider the past, to look toward the future, to breathe fully into the great gift of now. To be, to see, to hear, to learn, to love, to give, to forgive, to change, to grow, to rise, to imagine, to listen, to express, to play, to build, and to dance through time. We have great tools that connect us together. There's light in each of us, and then there's also those shadows that we must face to unlock that light and shine it all over the place. We've inherited great wisdom, but must find the ways to claim our rightful place, to live in harmony once again, here in person or here in cyberspace. The great tree of peace is calling, and I do not think that it can wait. Stories can be medicine, and stories can activate. That's why I want to share with you the story of the prophecy of the Great Brightening. Some may say it is the story of the great princess Tzedekah in the land of Evermore, once known as Andali. But it is much, much more than that, you see, for the kind of magic that happened there can happen only when there comes real healing and unity. Yes, real healing and unity. Of course, when most people think about what happened in the land of Evermore, once known as Andali, when they recall the prophecy and the opening of the portal to the new time and the activation of that root system of communication and the infinite flow that was set into motion, most will remember Tzedekah, most will remember that soul. They will likely think of her with a smile upon their face, or you may see a tear, or perhaps even a gleam appear in their eye when they tell you that, aha, aha, yes indeed, She must have been the great warrior Tsidapis returned. Or they may recall that triumphant moment when she rode upon horseback upon that sacred land with her arms outstretched into the sky, sung out the song of her soul's ancient expression. She sang, "Aya na 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 na," to which the people of the one drum who had gathered there sung, "Aya na na na." She sang, "Aya na 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 na," and they sang, "Aya na na na," and on and on and on until they came into resonance to activate the heart center of the world for the good of all, as had been foretold. Now those who were there may speak to you of the infinite ripples that were sent out throughout all of time, or of the great rhythmic pulsation and field effect of presence and loving kindness that was activated to usher in a new era of connection and coherence, finally uniting those sacred circles in that very vision of shared power that so many had dreamed of for so long. But if I am to transmit the full essence of this tale and truly open up the gates for our worlds to communicate, then I must speak to you also of the madness, of the ridiculousness, and indeed of the great pain that reigned amongst the people in that time before that moment came to be, and of some of the trials and tribulations before that collective epiphany. Yes, just before that collective epiphany. Perhaps as we begin, you must also know about the happenings before Tzedekah's birth, at the initial stages of the conquering, before the patterning had been set, just before Andali had been renamed, and before the king and queen had risen to fame through the great spectacle of the evermore game. For I can now still see the graceful movements of Imuna, her body draped in the red color of the land, as was the custom of the keepers of the prophecy. There she is, in the land of the Shekinah, where it was said by the elders that the great mystery of all that is emanates from. This was where many ceremonies were held before the conquest, now off limits, with trespassing now in fact punishable by death, and of course broadcast for all to see in order to deter any similar tendency. Calm and graceful, a master of movement, ninja-like, her breathing is slow and cannot be detected by the orbs which flow about from time to time. Beep, 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 sensing for trespassing and relaying its messages back to the security towers now in place. She can see the colors of her surroundings, highly attuned, sensing the field. She is guided by her own senses, by a vision she had moons ago, and by the monks themselves who had seen that something essential would need to be accessed for them to succeed. Gathered they are beyond the perimeter, prayer in unity for the mission at hand. She can feel the smoothness of the soil through her and senses that it were in her piece of the story of this land. According to the ancient wisdom, which was now so much more difficult to keep alive, all of the soil was sacred, as were each of the elements, the air, the etheric energy, the fire, the water, the land, the trees, the stones, and all living beings. And yet this soil is especially soft, reddish brown, like a fine powder, was considered especially so, especially sacred, and if approached in the right way, was indeed able to transmit messages with the greatest of clarity. She listened and she sensed, with her heart, with her awareness, with her body, until the energy spoke to her, pulling her toward a distinct scent of pine needles that made her smile, crisp and clear near a small red rock formation where the moonlight shined on the sand-like soil. There she stopped to dig with her hands, where the soil felt like powder, where it was said by the elders that the great waters had once been, where the ancient crystal mountain had long ago lived. Digging with her hands, a sense of elation comes over her. It's not long before she feels what she has come for. One crystal piece, smooth, and then another, and then more. With a great smile now on her face and her eyes now wide open, she feels them with the pleasure now of a playful child. Yes, they must fit together somehow, these pieces, and with the red satchel she carries laid out in the moonlight, she begins to align them. But she is lost in the moment now, forgetting the circumstances momentarily. Beep, 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 beep. She senses now the dynamic colors around her shift and the orbs, beep, 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 change course. Her heart now thumps faster and louder suddenly. Abruptly, she remembers where she is, recalling again the danger and the necessity of the moment. She picks up the crystals in the satchel and settles back into the mastery of her craft, shifting her breath so that the senses lose sight of her. Beyond the perimeter, where the small tribe of monks are gathered in prayer for the mission, she arrives, laying the crystals on the ground amidst the circle. The monks breathe together and chant lightly and then settle into silence. After some time, one of them, feeling called toward the pieces, moves toward the center. He moves the pieces around until they're able to lock into a recognizable shape. There's a light that's emitted then, the colors of the ether shift, and an image appears in the air. It is unmistakable. All can see the form of a great horse standing on its hind legs, the colors around the image distinctive and bright. Yes, there is Tadathis again, upon his trusted horse, and then the colors above, changing just as they had during the final battle, that they can now all recall. They can see Tadathis, their greatest warrior, who had fought valiantly in defense of the land, and they all can remember the moment his life force left his body. In the sky, the colors of his spirit could be sensed during the tragic moment when it was clear that defeat was imminent, when those who could hear heard his voice. I'm sorry. I love you. Do not forget our ways. I will come again in a different form. And they could hear his words repeat, I will come again in a different form. The monks were in joy with this sign, but where? One of them asked, when? How will we know it is you? And there was no answer that could be detected at this time. Many years passed and still there was no answer. The conquest of Evermore continued. The tribes were scattered and depleted. There were many more wars fought for power and property and resources and control, and many souls forgot altogether the vision of peace and harmony and shared power that the monks sought to keep alive. They forgot about the interconnection of all things. And then there was the great spectacle, the great games played to crown the king and queen of the land now known as Evermore. It would be years before the monks received their sign. By then the castle was built and a new culture was imposed. For most, their faith was crushed, and only a few could recall the energy and the colors and the clear voice of Tadathis. They continued their sacred practice and attempted to spread the tale, and yes, some could hear, but for many it was too hard to hear or to see, too painful to consider, until that day when the announcement came. Indeed, it was a surprise after so many years, when it was announced that the queen was said to be giving birth to a child. And on that day, the monks saw the colors change in the sky above the castle, and they knew at last their sign had come. The monks who had kept the prophecy alive gathered at the castle to perform a ceremony to welcome her, as they had done for each soul entering into form. They attempted to spread the news that their valiant leader had returned, that the prophecy was alive, but many of the scattered tribes, their culture taken from them, could not hear the sacred message they sought to express. The new culture was in place now, the programming strong, and the castle was undoubtedly one of its epicenters of power. For after all, even if it was Tadathis in a new form, which most could not bring themselves to believe or even consider, how could that soul possibly be of service to the world when the programming would be so strong amidst the madness of the castle, situated as it was to anchor in the imposed ways? And how could the monks perform their traditional role, passed along over generations, of finding their leader and preparing him, or in this case her, for the challenges that would lay undoubtedly ahead.